Hey, Carin here with the Philly Connect podcast. We have two special guests here today with us. They are some of Houston's most eligible bachelors.
Sure.
Okay, true? Okay. I was going to say, I
Facts.
can't really tell you if they're single or not. Okay. They're single, y'all. But how about you guys just tell us who you are? And like we did last week with the women, I asked them to share what their outlook on relationships is in their introductions. So can you guys do the same? I know that's kind of broad.
Sure. You can start, man.
You go first.
I don't even know what that is. My name is George Okamada, and I'm a worship leader. So as far as you said, my outlook on relationships?
Yeah. What's your stance? Where do you stand?
I'm not a dater. I'm a courter. And I would like to marry someday.
Men. Got it.
That's good. My name is Joshua Williams. My role is I'm a networker. I do a lot of inner city youth and work with a lot of our absent fathers in their homes. Also do ministry work at church. You said the question is, what's my outlook on a relationship?
Yeah.
I can agree with George. My outlook is really just courtship, but also has purpose to marry.
Okay.
So if I'm in a relationship or with that person, the purpose has to be marriage.
Yep.
Not, let me just figure out, just got information, but that's how I view if I'm in a relationship of courtship that is leading to marriage.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce the topic, but I want to ask you guys before we do that, you both use the term courtship instead of dating. Can you explain why? One of you, both of you can add on.
I'm not used to dating. Where I guess how I was raised, we don't think about dating, right? When we're looking at as far as like relationships go, we're more into the idea of, okay, this is potentially the woman that you want to marry. So just get to know her, and starting from a safe way. And see where it leads, right? So if it leads in a proper direction, then you guys take the next steps.
Is that then dating? Or what does dating mean? What is the distinction between dating and courtship?
Yeah, so when I think about dating in its proper sense is like when you actually take a woman out on a date, right? On a like specific date, it's like, okay, hey, like you, like it's kind of like an interview like sort of thing, you know, like I'm sharing with you who I am like formally, and you're sharing with me who you are formally, and from there we're able to see, okay, hey, from the information that we've shared with each other, what are we going to do with that next, right? For me, I've never really been comfortable with that, so I've been more on the side of, okay, hey, like I may like this person, right? So let me figure out how to either be friends with that person to start off with, and then from there I can make moves to see about, okay, hey, I want to take the next step with this person.
Got it. Anything to add?
I mean, I just think I believe like when it comes to like dating, it's like you're trying to find who that person is, and I think sometimes we don't have in some cases, there's not like a found conclusion to it, right? It's like, hey, let's just date, and you just gather information of that person, like I said.
Okay.
And then once the information's not received, like, okay, let me go date somebody else. I think courtship to me, like, I think just the same you said, it's like building that friendship with that person, and you realizing, okay, I want to take that next step with you, and knowing that, hey, we're definitely going to take this journey together, and I see the potential in both of us being in marriage.
Yeah.
Not gather information and call it good, but really tied into the marriage of,
Yeah. So it sounds like courtship is more from your perspective, it's intentional. Both in dating and courtship, you're getting to know someone, but in dating it's more just could be leisurely, could be for the company, and you may never, you're not doing so with, I want to get to know this person to see if he is possibly someone I will, or she is someone I will want to put a ring on her finger.
Correct.
So it's a little more fluid.
Yeah.
Whereas with courtship, it's more intentional. and less fluid,
Got it.
less playing games.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think with dating, you meet people as representatives.
Okay.
And it's
good.
at first you spend a lot of time with that person's representative, and the danger with it, as far as guys go, is that you get to foot the bill for as long as
as long as she'll play you.
yeah, no, as long as you're working with that representative,
Yep.
You get to foot the bill, and if it doesn't work out, I mean, you spent all this money. Maybe you might have had a good time, but to me, I just feel like the risk, right, outweighs the rewards as far as like dating goes, as opposed to like courtship is more like there are more ways that you can take to get to know someone without spending so much money, so to speak. Yeah.
So it's the approach in a courtship is different than the approach in a dating situation.
Right.
And then also in dating, you'd meet the man's representative too, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. All right.
But we're talking about her. Right
Okay,
now.
fair, fine. I am representing her today. So I'm gonna rewind real quick.
Go ahead.
So today we're talking about standards and expectations and desire in relationships. So you, like I said, I had the same conversation with women only.
What did they say?
What did they say? It's all gonna come out. But we wanted to have men only, women only, and then we're going to come together for a conversation. But we talked about, one, the standards that we should have in a relationship as men and women of God, in a courtship, where these things that we consider standards have become watered down.
Yes, it has.
And or we've put too much on them and mixed in our own desires to think that they should be standards. So I'm going to go back even a little bit more. We want to talk and spend today with a solution-focused mindset. Okay. I think, as I mentioned last time, my sweatshirt is from Rooted in Love, which is our annual relationship conference, which is awesome. It's focused on equipping us with tools to build healthy relationships, lasting relationships. It's a co-ed 2-day conference. And usually by the end of February, I'm like done talking about relationships. But this is going to be a really healthy and fruitful discussion.
Good.
So when we think about courting, first off, we have to define who we're talking about. So when we say a Christian, and I know we even kind of mentioned just kind of goofing around, it's not someone who just wears that label.
No.
It's someone who is actually living the lifestyle of being a disciple and following Christ, right? Course, yes. Right? So everything we say today will come from that viewpoint. But one thing I think we have to consider within courtships as men and women is realize that there was a time maybe we weren't fully walking with the Lord, or we've allowed worldly or secular concepts to become a part of how we think about or walk in relationships.
Right.
So one of the two of the most asked questions year to year when we do our relationship series are, one, from men, how does a Christian woman want to be approached? And my first thought is always like, how would you approach any like regular non-Christian or regular woman? And maybe that's like a very different I think I'm normal, so like every time I hear that I'm like, okay, here we go again. And then the other question is on the opposite side, kind of coming from women, is like, why don't Christian men approach more like godly women? Or like what are they really looking for? Men say they want the Christian woman, but they want like a certain type of Christian woman that has a lot of secular attributes. So let's start by defining what are some just standards that we should have you should have as men when you think about a woman of God, so that all Christian men, if there's anything that we say, here's a list 3, let's just give 3. Excuse me. What are those 3 things? And in no particular order. And I know there are going to be a lot more things that we don't touch on. So maybe just the first 3 that come to mind. Standards that are biblically based, that all Christian men should have for women.
She has to take the Bible seriously.
I'm going to write these down. Okay. Yeah. She has to take the Bible. What does that mean?
We're Christians, and we go to church, and we have Christian friends.
Yeah.
So the entire time we're hearing Bible scriptures, and you can even have a devotional life. But when you come across a tough time in your life, that's when you really need the word. So if something if something happens in her life, right, where does she run to, right? So apart from having a confidant, apart from having a pastor or a counselor that she goes to, where does she lean as far as her perspective on like whatever happened, whether if it's like a death in the family, or she just suffered a huge disappointment in life. Like, where does she start from? And to me, someone who starts from a biblical place in going about their solutions, like that's what communicates being serious about the Bible.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's good. And just to add, it's like a foundation, right? I like how you said, who can handle that pressure. It takes me back to Job's wife. You look at Job went through, but what happened to his wife? Instead of being that support, right, or being that backbone, she would criticize and say, curse God. So you can tell that her foundation was not on a rock, right? So, because anyone who's on a rock won't speak against the Lord with you. And I think, so you want that the one who will continue in that word, not just, not more than, and just to add, not more just quoting in the air, right? Just the quote, but just really taking the sincerity and having that personal encounter with God.
Okay, personal relationship.
Yeah, and I also have to mention that she doesn't have to be able to quote the entire scripture, right?
Okay.
Yeah. She.
Ladies, see, they're reasonable.
Yeah. You don't have to be able to quote the entire scripture, but it's just when where to run to.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
makes sense.
in times of or in bad times, I'll put it that way. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What about number 2? What's another one?
Yeah, I say for me, for the fear of God.
Fear of God.
I think reverence. I think Proverbs talks about that a lot. 31 about a woman who fears the Lord, and I think that's not a fear where I'm in trouble. Oh, I did this or I did bad, but like a reverence for the Lord, because once that is in place, once the fear of God is there, or that reverence is it's grown into because of the knowledge of God or that relationship, then there will be respect on who the God you serve. Y'all both serve.
Then she can respect you. Can you come a little closer to the mic? Yeah,
that we can respect each other because the reverence of God is there. Then nothing's not gonna be done with ill will, right? It's just gonna deal with, because I serve you because I love the Lord. I reverence the Lord. I and I think that's plays a standard we can contest on both parts, man or woman.
Absolutely. That's good, because I think on both sides in a relationship, it's inevitable that there are going to be times when the woman won't feel loved and the man won't feel respected, and the only thing that's going to keep the two people honoring each other in the way God tells them to do so is reverence for God. So that makes a lot of sense. One more? Can we get one more? I know y'all have like 10 more.
No, we got a whole list.
Right. Can I throw one out?
Throw it.
Sure.
You guys can tell me if you agree.
We'll tell you if we agree.
Okay.
Right.
Submission. So a submissive, is that a standard? Does that have to be like, if she's we were using this term. We can also define what submission means, because
can you define because since you're representing the ladies, can you define what submission is.
Yes. Well, I like to define it from the Bible. My understanding. Really? Mm-hmm. Why?
No, we'll start with you first. Don't you dare.
Okay. Okay. So I think about Ephesians 5.
Correct.
And the model that is presented before us is Christ being the head of church, man being the head of the woman.
Yes.
And when we look at how Christ was the head of the church as the model, I expect man to be head of me in that same way. So church respects Jesus Christ, woman respects man and submits, meaning that she I'm going to say I want to talk about it more practical. I'm not just trying to use scripture. I'm able to listen and to honor him and respect his decisions and believe that he's coming from a wise place. So I'm going to just say this. I think I'm a pretty, what's the word? I'm pretty strong in like my beliefs and when I've made up my mind about something. But if I know I have a man of God, right, by my side and I've committed to following him and trusting that he's listening to God.
Correct.
If he makes a decision and we're on complete opposite ends of it, I have to, as head, as leader, my submission is, okay, babe, like, I don't agree with you, but I'm trusting that you've prayed and you're listening to God and you're making a decision based on like removing yourself and all of these other things. And if not, God's going to have to show him because I don't want to step out of what I believe how God has told me to be as a woman of God in a marriage. So I don't know that I'm not saying that a woman in a courtship needs to be that.
Yeah.
But she needs to exhibit and show certain qualities that you can understand that she can, if that is where you're going, that she would be able to submit.
And I'm sorry, George. And I think he said something and submission can be not only just shown marriage, but it can be shown in how she in her leadership, how is her role in the church, how's her
oh, that's others, so good. Yeah.
Right? How is she submitted to her leadership? Is she serving? And those characteristics shows.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Well, you can tell that she's going to be a very submissive woman down the line because the way she applies practical. Because the Bible says submit to one another. Right. In many ways. So I look at that and then that can just carry on some things. And, and can grow. So.
Well, I think submission. I have a question. Like, will she let the man have the last word?
Ooh.
Like that's to me. Like that's it. Like financially.
That's it.
Yeah. Like financially, in raising the kids, emotionally, right? As far as life choices, say okay, hey, we say the husband wants to move somewhere, right? Maybe because of a job situation. Or just a calling in his life. Will she let him have the last word?
He's considering her, though, right? He's talking to her.
We're not talking about him right now.
No, wait.
We're talking about her.
You can't call that. I agree. We are talking about her, but we also have to. We can't overlook also what submission comes with in terms of the role of a man. A man of God, it also says that you submit one to another. So the Bible, and then it goes on to say that women submit, right? So there's a level of submission that also has to come from a man. So I'm also, as a woman, not sitting here saying I'll submit to if he's my husband, I think there are going to be times where I have to shut it up, lock it up. And even though I feel disrespected, unloved, whatever, still submit. But that can't be, a godly man can't love his wife in that way and say he's a man of God. You're
talking about his like defining what it means to be the head,
right? So
or the responsibilities that come with being the head. I don't think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about like submission, like her part.
Yes, but I just wanted to clarify. He has to consider her in getting the last word. That's all.
But that's.
Oh my gosh!
That's his part. That's with being the head.
Okay,
loving
George
her.
George is saying, stay on
loving
track,
her as Christ loved the church. Okay. Right? Yeah,
that's his part.
A whole different.
So we're assuming that's done.
We're assuming that he's working on it. You know,
Oh
that
my
he's
gosh, okay.
we're assuming that he's working. He won't be perfect.
No, and she won't.
And she won't be perfect in submission.
Right.
So there's a question for that too, and I'm not the one to ask that question. So the question I'll ask for her is like, will she let him have the last word? Because that would be her battle.
That will be her battle.
Yeah, that would be her
But
struggle.
I think then we can talk about where does selflessness come into play? Like, is the man only expecting her to say yes? Do you want a yes man, a yes woman? Because George, I don't want people to, and I also don't want to take what you're saying wrong. You're not asking for a woman to be a yes woman in what you're saying in terms of submission, right?
No.
Okay.
So if we're going to take that route. So we're looking at Christ loving the church,
yeah,
right?
And being
so
the head.
so he loved the church to the point where he said, "I'm going to die for you," right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's given his all to her, like to the church to start with, right? So when he says he's coming back for a particular type of bride, right?
Yes.
So he's not coming back. He's not negotiating when he comes back, right? And even him leaving and the Holy Spirit coming in, the Holy Spirit coming to dwell with us, he demands obedience from us, right? But his demand of us being obedient is not to crush us. It's not because he's being overbearing, but it's that he's done his work, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the head of the church.
Got it.
So that's why I'm saying, that's a whole different conversation. Yeah.
Fair.
You know.
We'll have to come back to that at some point. Did you want to add something on before we move on?
Yeah, just add one thing.
Yes.
And I think sometimes when it comes to submission, I think for me, I like you said, like that we're submit to one another, right? And I think we can't, let's be honest, in our own nature, it's difficult.
Oh yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's why it's the Spirit of God can help us to that place of submission, and also depend on the Spirit of God to help us to love, because it's not in our nature.
Right.
And the one thing I heard, I heard this practical is like, once we as men are commanded to love, right? Yes, we are commanded to love, but when a woman of God sees that through a man, that love, that the genuine love of God, right? She will gladly submit, and not treating her like a doormat, right? Because we hear those misconstrued, but I think when the presence of God is there, it's like, yes, and you having those mutual conversations, you having those mutual understanding of things, because as you're growing, y'all growing, so there's going to be conversations, some differences, but you growing into that place, like how can we resolve, how can we come into agreement on this, how are we going to have it, because we're all communicators, right?
Yeah.
And we are going to have these discussions. Should I eat the fruit or should I not eat the fruit, right? We'd have to have those, because that was the conversation that should have had, right? Instead of being, okay, I'm gonna go do it anyways, So I think we have to, grow in those areas of having those, healthy conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree, but I kind of disagree, and maybe not completely with your point, but just with a detail or a nuance. To whereas if she sees that the man is doing what he's supposed to be doing, then that will motivate her to submit. I don't believe that. I believe she should stand on her own. Like, she has her relationship with God, right?
That's in marriage.
Yeah,
This is marriage.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're.
No, sorry, I'm clarifying because I'm like, if I'm in a courtship. That's completely
and
he's
different.
not showing anything. Bye.
That's a whole different conversation.
Okay,
of course.
fair.
Of course.
All right, cool. I think we're on the same page. And I hear you. She needs to, regardless of him, once that commitment has been made, you're on the opposite side.
Of course.
Yeah.
Continue. And the expectation
it's a struggle. It's a struggle for both of them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Everyone has to cross the
Yeah.
bear. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good 3. We said, did y'all agree with that? By the way, submission, like it's a deal breaker if you can't see that she's willing to. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
standard. Yeah.
Standard. Great. What about, can we get 3 standard deal breakers. Like, again, these are not preferences.
What they say, a contentious woman run to the house top.
Okay, so if she's contentious.
Yeah, she's ooh.
That's fair. Ooh,
She's contentious.
Yeah, that would be, I could feel for you on that one.
Yeah, she just
okay.
What is that? What is that? An unsatisfied woman? Is that what? Is that what? Would that be the description of her?
Yeah, unsatisfied. Very
critical, maybe
critical,
overly critical,
overcritical, very nitpicking, very negative. You know, that kind of like nagging and critical, and it becomes a nuance. Like, oh my God, why? So yeah, that's what I'm like.
Doesn't bear the fruits of the spirit.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, what's another one?
One thing that's a deal breaker for me is.
He just got so serious.
Yeah. This is real.
His voice changed.
This is very real to me. Does she make moves behind my back?
Ooh.
What type of moves?
This is so serious to me. I don't know when it became so serious to me.
Have you experienced this?
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know when it became so serious to me. Maybe I need to go see someone about it. But and I'm not talking about like her getting information she needs to throw you a surprise birthday party. I'm saying like if she has like active bank accounts that she don't know about, like active ones.
Like how many?
Yeah. I mean, like at least 2, right?
2.
Like she got to have a savings.
Okay. One here, one in France.
Yeah, no, she got to have a savings, like like an insurance savings account that you don't know nothing about in case.
For real, right?
But I mean, if we use a broader term that I think we can all like, could we consider that lying? Because there's a lack of transparency, a lack of honesty.
Sure. Oh yeah,
she's sneaky. Who wants that type of woman?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's also like not biblically characteristics of a woman that a godly man should approve of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, no, it's important. If you go into a relationship, with someone, it's important that you guys have a good understanding as far as like where you guys are coming from, because some people have had like the kind of relationships where they needed to do that.
That's real.
Yeah, like being in an abusive relationship, and they got good counsel to say, okay, hey, you need to set up a bank account because this man, like when he gets to this particular place, you need to be able to make your move.
Yeah.
And if you get out of that relationship, but you never deal with let's say with the
effects.
The effects of effects of what happened, and you bringing that into another relationship.
Right.
Now you're punishing the person that you were in a relationship with.
Yeah.
Because of something that happened to you in the past, and it's not fair to that particular person. Yeah.
And so I think and I'm happy you said that, because it's like if she is habitually sneaky or doing things behind your back,
right,
you have grace to understand, like, okay, if these things start to come out, there has to be intentionality in how you're addressing these things and what you're doing to not continue in those same ways. And if not, then it's a deal breaker.
Yeah, and some people might not know. It can just be something that you do in a relationship.
Right, what you're used to.
Yeah, what you're used to.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and people have different struggles. So the idea is, okay, if you're coming into a relationship, like let's have conversations. We don't need to dig too deep into your past, but like, what are you bringing into this relationship as far as your mindset goes? And it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning as far as standards go, with them being serious about the Bible, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, maybe something has happened where they needed to put up those walls. But if we go back to the Bible and we're both submitted to making sure that we obeying God's word, let's figure out, like, from here how we're going to move forward as a couple and how we're going to do life together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Can we get one more before we move on?
Yeah.
Gossiper.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a talebearer, right?
Where I come from, they call them busybodies.
Busybodies. My gosh, on everybody's business, man. I think gossipers. We can go a whole deal, but I think when there's a gossiper, it ties them with jealousy at the same time because you always envy the next person. You always want to tear down that next person, and then what happens when you get that into your relationship? Now they're gonna be trying to bring comparison. Oh, why he ain't like Joe Smith on this, and then you start spreading rumors and stuff.
Wow.
So it becomes very toxic, right? It never becomes a healthy relationship. So I like to listen to your conversations and see who. I listen to your conversation. If you spend more time talking about somebody else or bringing these kind of gossip or rumors about this person, down the line, I can tell that either when something goes down, right, in our relationship, you're gonna talk to somebody else, and you're not gonna find help. You're gonna try to tear down your husband, and then that's how the enemy steps in the moment. Because now you're gonna be talking to the wrong person and listen to the wrong. So that goes a long way for me. It's like, just don't be messy. Don't be not only for the ladies, just same with guys too. We can, but that's because out of the heart speak it. So when I listen to your conversation, it tells me who you are. Your character tells about what is in your heart. Just talk.
I mean, Proverbs says like, even a fool looks wise. Quiet, right? So just somebody who, on the flip side, just knows how to mind their own business. That would be the flip side of that.
That's good. Yeah. This is a good list, and we actually came up with it pretty quickly. So we have I'm going to just quickly read to y'all what the woman shared, and I think that these go like hand in hand.
I want to hear their definition of submission.
So their standards, the standards that they should all women should have.
In the beginning,
we'll come back to that on part 2. So the standards that they said all women should have is that we're second to God only, meaning he's obviously like putting God first.
Of course.
Purity, and having an understanding of what that means, not just like physically abstaining, but everything that comes with that. Honesty and integrity, grace, that he's fruit bearing, and he has vision and drive. And then the deal breakers were a liar, someone that doesn't respect boundaries, vision doesn't align, someone who doesn't honor parents. So again, like this is not an exhaustive list, but those were some of the things that came up. So I want to ask you guys now to think about
lightning round.
So can you think about how have expectations distorted your view of courtship? And the way I phrase it that way is that expectations that you didn't realize were creating these expectations have come about from personal experiences, but then you started putting them into relationships and courtships, where the standard, like I said, not an exhaustive list, but this should be like the bare minimum, right? And then there are all the other things that come from compatibility and desire and those kinds of things. Correct. But how have you, maybe if you can think of a personal example, or if you want to speak more generally, how do you think we've allowed expectations to overcome like godly standards in a courtship? How has that affected us? Does it make sense? Does my question make sense? You need a minute to think about it? Or should I rephrase?
Rephrase it one more time.
Okay. How have we allowed, so maybe think personally, can you give an example of maybe a revelation you've had from talking to somebody that you were allowing personal expectations that stem from personal experiences dictate the outcome of your relationship, where it could have been a godly woman, but just like to a certain extent, it was a level of immaturity in learning and growing that you didn't allow her space to be. Like maybe you were expecting a finished product and not showing her the grace, but you just didn't see it at that time. It was like your own expectations that you had set as a standard.
Yeah. So for me in the last relationship I was in, I broke up with her, or I left the relationship because I started seeing the same same patterns, right, that I'd seen in previous relationships, right? And I would have to admit up to a particular point that I was projecting, but at the same time though, it was where it's like, if you feel the same things that you felt, right, in the last relationship, and it keeps escalating, right, no matter what good that person is doing, no matter how good that person is doing, it's difficult to see, right? So what happened to me in hindsight, when I started looking at I guess the pros and cons of the relationship, I was able to see a lot of the great things that she was contributing to my life, right? But while I was in it, I was so blinded by, I don't want the same thing to happen to me again, right? So before I let the same thing happen to me again, I'm gonna break off the relationship, because like no matter how great like whatever she's doing is at the moment, what good would it be if I die in the process, just being like overly dramatic, right? Like what good, like what would be the result, like what would be the gain like from the relationship? So just being clouded by what I felt like were negative patterns from previous relationships. That's one main thing. I know that like personally, that had me make the decision to say, okay, hey, I'm going to break off, this particular relationships. And not to say that she didn't have her faults,
right?
But when I saw those patterns, whatever faults that she did have, I magnify them.
Right. So you didn't maybe give her a chance to become.
Right.
Then you already had, maybe she would have to overcompensate for those areas.
Right.
And I think that's even something I've kind of starting to understand more in the process of becoming in a relationship, is that there are things that are going to bother you. But I don't know if I misunderstood what you just said. Dying to self, is that, or dying, you don't want to die in the process.
I mean, I was being overly dramatic.
Because we do have to die to self in the process.
My thought in a relationship is where, talk here, of course, in a marriage relationship, is where you guys are journeying together, right? So the process of living our lives, we are going to have struggles, like personal struggles, and we are going to bring things into the relationship. But we're not coming into the relationship, like you've mentioned earlier, like, as the finished product, right? So the joy, part of the joy of the relationship is that we're journeying together and we're transforming along the way. So if I'm going into the relationship with her and I'm taking in all this all this baggage, and I can't see past the baggage to enjoy the journey itself. Like that's it. Like that was
Got
like
it.
a particular.
It's not her. It'll be you, because it'll be another woman then in the same position.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Josh.
Wow. I mean, he dropped the mic on that one. I just think for me, I might just speak from a general. Realizing that growth is different from each other, right? Sometimes we can. Well, I realize that yes, you are Christian, right? You're born again. You love the Lord, but you also got to be patient with the person that's growing.
Yeah.
Knowing that person is not gonna, their experience is gonna be different from your experience, and not being afraid that they're gonna accept your experience, if that makes sense.
Wow. Okay.
Like, cause sometimes everybody has a different. We have the same encounter with the Lord, but a different encounter, right? But our upbringing might be different.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to realize, okay, that's their part of their upbringing, and I know that this person's not going to be where they're at now, but we'll be in a different place later.
Right.
And sometimes I had to come to my conclusion, like come to understand with the Lord. It's like, okay, I know that this is a growing path, and I had to just learn that. I just be real. I had to learn that where there's humility, you can't expect them to be where you're at. If I mean, like, I have to be mindful how I share certain things.
Progress won't look the same.
Don't look the
to
same.
both of you guys.
Yes, right. Yeah. So I have to. My encounter, my prayer life, my stuff is going to be different. So I can't put it on her. I have to work with her, just vice versa, because you never want to. Well, I don't want to be that dude to make them feel intimidated, right? Or feel like, oh wow, I'm not good enough, right? Or I'm not that. It's not about that. So it's just knowing that we are working grace, work in progress, and we just getting there, you know. And that's something I have to realize. It's like, hey, we just going to a different page. Yeah,
that's good. So I'm gonna share mine, but as it relates to men, in closing. So I know that I've always kind of had a certain expectation, and we can talk more about this on part 2 when we have the men and women together. But my expectation is like when a guy approaches me, once he says like, well, okay, let me just be real. If a guy is approaching me, like, I don't expect.
Does he need lines? Or can he just say hello?
No, he can just say hi. I just mean, like, if you're trying to tell me, like, you're interested in me, my expectation is that you're not talking to anyone else. Like, or like engaging, regardless of where, if I am or not.
I was kind of with you.
Listen. I said we'll talk more about this. Part 2. Seriously, should we just leave it right there?
Let's define
finish.
submission.
No, finish. Okay, open it up.
I know. Let me just say this because I understand now. Maybe that was like me and my naivety or immatureness, whatever you want to call it, that a guy wants some kind of commitment, or not even commitment. Let me not say commitment. Acknowledgement that like you're interested, and then he kind of like stops looking at or considering others. I don't know.
You just want him to be serious, like when he's coming. Yeah, like you want him to have already thought about it.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
But to me, it's like, why are you still even? If you've prayed about it, then I'm the only one that you should be pursuing.
Right. Even if you haven't prayed about it.
Exactly. Because I don't know that you were even interested in me. So why was I praying about you if I didn't know? Right. But again, like, we'll come back to this. So anyway, I think my
submission.
So the was it a complete thought? Y'all got me. I don't even know where I started.
Let's talk submission.
Y'all love, guys. They clearly love the word submission.
It's part of the mission.
My point was my expectations maybe had stemmed from just personal things. Maybe like not a God. I don't even want to say that. I'm going to say not a godly standard. I do think it was a godly standard.
It is.
But it was maybe skewed in some ways. But again, we'll talk about that on the next podcast. Thank you guys so much.
Cliffhanger.
Or part 2, a bit of a cliffhanger. Thank you all, Josh and George, for being a part of this. It was a pleasure having you. You guys shared a lot of wisdom and knowledge, and I'm going to pray y'all find a nice young lady.
Tell me, man. Look,
please pray fast.
Pray fast.
All that.
Okay,
my phone blowing up right now. Nah.
All right, y'all.
Mine is not.
Nah, right.
This is Carin with the Philly Connect podcast. Until next time, peace.